So how's everyone's weekend? You enjoying this I just want to take a second to thank Doc for inviting me out here because it's been an amazing weekend. I've really had a great time and I'm glad I came out. So thank you so much, Doc. He's been working so hard, so give him a round of applause. So before I get into my presentation, I want to just go over a brief history of myself, I guess, and just what I do, because I know I'm kind of new as a speaker in the scene, so a lot of you probably don't really know much about me. So what I do for a living, I am an actress, model, musician, UFO conference speaker, MC. I like to call myself a spiritual activist because I don't know, everything I kind of do in the arts and music, and it's all kind of related together with, I'll go more into it later, but you'll see what I mean. Also, I create these handcrafted energy channeling devices called Shaman spears. I'll get into those in a little bit here. A little bit my background in ufology. So I'm a lifetime researcher in ufology. Basically, ever since I could read, I spent my entire life just reading on all these different subjects. The main thing that really piqued my interest was esoteric knowledge and forbidden archaeology. That's what really got me into the ufology, because I was always interested in ancient civilizations, and I saw the connection between the gods and aliens, extraterrestrials. So that's really where my background is, my main interest. And I always kind of knew that ufology was a real thing. It didn't really need to be proven to me, but that's the main thing that really interested me with it. Also, I'm a quantum touch energy healer. I'll go more into that in a second. I've been raised my whole life with it. My uncle trained me in it basically ever since I can remember. So I do know how to work with energy, and that's why I make these. I'll go more into these later. I also just got trained, so quantum touch is a yang energy method, and I just got trained in the wonder method, which is yin energy. Next slide, please. So, I forgot to mention I'm also in a band. I'm a guitarist in a band. Our music is all in 432 Hz frequency. We are called the Siren. So basically, I joined this group about 3 or 4 years ago. What we do is we go around touring to politically conscious kind of events and performing. And like I said, my guitar is tuned to 432 Hz frequency, the vocals, everything. If you don't know what 432 Hz frequency is, a little overview. It is at the same resonance that the Earth vibrates on, the Shaman resonance. Is mathematically consistent with the universe. You can look into the details of that, and it's just everywhere in the diameter of our planet, the diameter of the moon, everything. So 440 Hertz is actually the standard concert A tuning. Everything you hear on the radio right now is in 440 Hertz, which is actually a disharmonic frequency. So if you look at the sound test, which will be in the next slide, if you do frequencies on a sand plate, I'm sure you've probably seen those as schematics, it forms like patterns if it's a resonant frequency, but if it's disharmonic, it doesn't really form the patterns. So just think about what that's doing to the water in your bodies and just how it affects us in general. So all ancient instruments were tuned to 432 Hertz, but around the Nazi era, the Prime Minister of Propaganda, Minister of Propaganda, he decided to change the frequency to the disharmonic frequency, which is now 440 Hertz. So everything you've heard on the radio since then, everything you hear on the radio is all disharmonic frequency. So what we were trying to do with our group is just spread awareness to this, and we want to hopefully get on the radio and have 432 Hertz on the radio. And it's actually interesting, Pink Floyd came out recently and said that they have always put their music out in 432 Hertz secretly. So I thought that was interesting. Next slide, please. So this is the difference between 432 Hertz and 440 Hertz. So 432 Hertz over here, you can see it makes the patterns. But 440 Hertz, it's not, it doesn't really make patterns, it's not harmonic. Next slide, please. So a little more on quantum touch energy healing. I don't know if many of you know about energy work. So basically what we're doing when you use it is you're channeling chi, life force, or love energy. They call it the force on Star Wars. So basically what you do is you bring it up from the earth, you channel it up to your head, and then you kind of push it down your arms and out your hands. And with these devices I make, it actually amplifies the energy like times 10. I'll get more into that in the next slide. Oh, can you go back, please? Sorry. Can you go back, please? Okay, and so basically what you're doing is when you're channeling the energy, you're giving someone energy so they have the ability to heal themselves. So you aren't healing them necessarily, you're giving them energy, because when people are having issues with their diseases, it's always from an energetic level, a vibrational level. So, normally maybe they have emotions that are repressed, something that happened a long time ago, and when that vibration is out of sync, then it causes issues that manifest on a physical level. Some examples from my life that proves to me that this really works is growing up, my younger brother was actually diagnosed with a rare liver disease when he was born, and no one's ever lived from this disease. And so basically my uncle had to sustain all the organs around his liver because he was on the waiting list for a year and no livers would come up, because basically they would only go to people who had alcohol problems, who destroyed themselves, instead of someone that, was just born when it's a little kid. So it's really messed up. And that was kind of interesting to me that when Ben and Rob went through the organ harvesting, because that is a major issue. Like when young kids like this, they need organs. And so basically my mom had to end up giving him part of her liver. So it was a really interesting story. Another time I actually had a kidney infection. Normally when you have a kidney infection, you have to go to the hospital. But my uncle was able to just clean out the bad blood energetically, and I was completely fine after. So I usually like to work on people emotionally. With the Wonder method, that's a new method I learned. It's more of an emotional processing technique. So I'm able to take people through the timeline of maybe like certain times in their life where they experienced something that was traumatic to them, and I can help them heal it and at least, see it in a different light. So I really like working with this new technique I've learned. Next slide, please. So these are my shaman spears. You can see them in my booth over here. I know a lot of you already got some. So basically what they are is they're handcrafted energy channeling devices. I put copper coils, crystals, sand I collect from sacred places around the world, magnets, and naturally magnetic hematite sand on the inside. So they're super powerful. They basically multiply energy like times 10. What's interesting about the science of hematite, I put hematite sand in these. What's interesting about hematite is we actually all have hematite in our brains. It's a naturally magnetic sand, naturally magnetic stone. And it's kind of what allows us all to be telepathic. If we all have these magnets in our brains, basically, then it puts us all in the same magnetic field. And it was interesting because I started putting the hematite sand in these before I found out the studies that started coming out on them right after I started doing that. So it's very interesting, kind of tripped me out. So can you go back one? Is there another slide before that? Oh, okay. Next slide, please. So another thing I do is I work for the Free and Equal Elections Committee for the United We Stand Fest organization. So basically what we do is we're trying to get rid of the dual party system where it's only the Democrats versus the Republicans. Obviously there's these other parties, but they can't run on an equal platform. And it's not right, and I think that's what's causing a lot of the issues in politics these days, is this left versus right dualistic view on everything. If we had all the parties able to run on an equal platform fairly, then we would have more options and we could choose a candidate that represents most people's views instead of just this side versus that side. We wouldn't have the same sort of separation. And they do that on purpose, obviously. If it's just this versus that, then that doesn't allow for someone to have mixed views that's in the middle, so they're trying to create separation by doing this. So it's really funny because being a part of the committee, I'm always asked to go to Politicon every year, and they let me just sell my shaman spears. That way I can just sit at the booth and talk to people all day and tell people about the organization. So this last year, they set me up right between MSNBC and the Washington Post, and I was just sitting there with my shaman spears. It was really interesting. So everyone came up there interviewing me. They're like, "What are you doing here with shaman spears?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just trying to transmute all this negative propaganda that's going on here." And like, really, I was, and that's where the universe put me in that moment, and it was really interesting. I like when the universe puts me in places like that. So, yeah, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, another thing that's really important to me that's helped me on my journey is so basically all the gods and goddesses, they are an ancient form of psychology. So each god and goddess represents a different energy archetype. In Greek mythology, I think it's probably with most mythologies around the world, a lot of them correlate the same characters, they just have different names in different cultures. But for me personally, I always found that I channeled the goddess Artemis. That energy archetype is just like 100%, I really connect with it. And it's really interesting to find out which archetypes you resonate with, because you can work with it and you can channel it more, and it was helped me a lot in my life. So a book that I read that helped me with that was The Goddess in You. It really changed my perspective on how I should be living this best in sync with my energy archetype. And what's also interesting about the gods and goddesses is they are connected to the Anunnaki and ancient extraterrestrials. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I start the presentation, the full presentation, I just want to remind everyone to be yourself, because if you aren't doing what's right for you, you aren't doing what's right for anyone else. And I think it's important that we are all living to our fullest potential and being what we're supposed to be in this world and living our purpose, because if we aren't doing that, then we're not helping fulfill the human race correctly. So we need to just make sure that we're always doing what we feel we need to be doing. Next slide, please. I always like this quote: "If your path is more difficult, it's because of your high calling." That's just always resonated with me. You know, like every time you go through things in life, it's just like building this sword. You know, you have to go through these things to become a stronger person. And if you're going through bad times, it's important. That's an important initiation with yourself. So just keep that in mind when you're going through things. Next slide, please. So now my presentation is on solutions for humanity. The future is brighter than we think. So I thought this was important, an important subject, because to me, like when you watch mainstream media, all they talk about is the problems. It's just problems, 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 and no one ever talks about the solutions. There's so many solutions, and we can't collectively manifest it if we don't see the visuals, and people don't know what solutions are out there. We're only talking about the problems, then we can't collectively manifest a positive future for ourselves. So I wanted to put a lot of visuals of, the end of this presentation is really the most important part to me, because I go into new ways of doing communities like vertical gardens and circular communities. So that's mostly what this is about, but I want to go through every solution for humanity that I personally have chosen. And yeah, next slide please. So part one is current world problems. Slide. So here's a few world hunger statistics courtesy of foodaidfoundation.com. Some 795 million people in the world do not have enough food to lead a healthy, active life. That's about 1 in 9 people on Earth. The vast majority of the world's hungry people live in developing countries where 12.9% of the population is undernourished. Asia is the continent with the most hungry people, two-thirds of the total continent. The percentage in Southern Asia has fallen in recent years, but in Western Asia it has increased slightly. Sub-Saharan Africa is the region with the highest prevalence percentage of population of hunger. 1 person in 4 there is undernourished. Poor nutrition causes nearly half of deaths in children under 5, 3.1 million children a year. Next slide, please. 1 out of 6 children, roughly 100 million in developing countries, is underweight. 1 in 4 of the world's children are stunted in developing countries. The proportion can rise to 1 in 3. 66 million primary school-aged children attend classes. Hungry across the developing world, with 23 million in Africa alone. WFP calculates that US 3.2 billion is needed per year to reach all 66 hungry school-aged children. Next slide, please. Pollution of the world's oceans. I'll just go through a few of these. Over 220 million tons of plastic are produced each year. There are now close to 500 dead zones covering more than 245 kilometers globally, equivalent to the surface of the United Kingdom. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. So plastics can contribute to reduce our carbon footprint. They provide improved insulation, lighter packaging, are found in phones, computers, medical devices, etc. But appropriate disposal is often not addressed. And I'll get more into different ways we can use things besides plastics later on. The United Nations Environment Program estimated in 2006 that every square mile of ocean contains 46,000 pieces of floating plastic. Next slide, please. Plastic debris causes the deaths of more than 8 million seabirds every year, as well as more than 100,000 marine mammals. Plastic materials and other litter can become concentrated in certain areas called gyres as a result of marine pollution gathered by oceanic currents. There are now 5 gyres in our ocean. And this is very unfortunate. That's, if you look at this, that's the islands of garbage that are floating out in the middle of the ocean. It's very unfortunate. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Another problem in the world that really hits close to home is Monsanto. Obviously, they're in bed with the government regulators, guilty of false advertising. Consumers reject growth hormones. I know for me personally, I've had to deal with major issues with my hormones being out of balance my entire life because of this, because I was raised by a Midwestern family that didn't know anything about eating organic and non-GMO and all that. So I was basically raised on McDonald's, and it really caused my hormones to be out of whack, and it was been a huge problem my whole life. So and there's been scientific studies on this, it affects if one entire family is fed the same kind of GMO foods, and it can affect them all differently. One of them may become super overweight, one may end up having heart disease. It affects everyone differently. Also, GMO foods lead to allergies, gluten allergy. We shouldn't be allergic to things that grow on Earth. Gluten, the reason why people have these gluten allergies is because of the GMO wheat. People didn't really have allergies with wheat before that. Wheat was the food of the gods in ancient times. We basically invented it, so why should we not be able to eat it? It doesn't make any sense. It grows on our Earth, we should be able to eat it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Human trafficking, obviously another major problem. Human trafficking is one of the most important, if not the most important issue on Earth at this time. I don't know if you all know about adrenochrome. These young kids are being taken and harvested for the adrenochrome. This is all a part of an elite organization that these kids are passed down by the elites, and Jeffrey Epstein is so great that that's all coming out now, because that's an important thing, because people don't like talking about this kind of stuff. A lot of people, when you want to bring this up and talk to them, I try to all the time, and they don't want to talk about it because it's so horrifying to them, and it's if we don't talk about it, then how are we going to solve these problems? I think it's important that we bring awareness to these kinds of things, even though it's horrible to talk about and you might not want to hear about it. Here's a nice little story, so I'm going to put a positive note on this. Here's a nice little story here. A flight attendant, Sheila Frederick, saved a passenger from human trafficking by leaving her a secret message in the plane's bathroom. She noticed a young girl traveling with an older man who wouldn't let her speak, so she whispered to the girl during drink service. The girl made it to the bathroom, found the note, replied, "I need help," and Frederick told the pilot. When the pilot landed, police were already waiting in the terminal. So I love hearing stories like that, and I think it's important that people should be looking out for signs like this, like especially in the hospitality industry. If that's not part of their training, it should be, especially on planes. Like Ben and Rob were saying in their presentation earlier, on planes, that's the biggest, the most major way that people are human trafficked. And as a young girl, a lot of times young kids, young girls, they're like brainwashed by these people. They take them and they make them feel bad about, like I actually have a friend personally who was taken when she was, I think 13 or 14 and put into a human trafficking ring with some elitists in New York. And basically she had run away from home. She went to Central Park, and this guy she met, she thought he was her new boyfriend, and she went to live with him, and he told her that if she wanted to stay with him, that she had to get with these other people for him to make money for the rent. So basically she was, kind of controlled or brainwashed into doing this, and it made her feel like she had done something wrong by not doing anything. So it was like, it's weird how people can really mess with your head like that. So yeah, you just need to look out for these signs with people. If you see a young kid with someone that it looks like they're scared to be with them, you should probably try to say something. So, next slide, please. I really like this. So I saw this quote a while back, and I thought it was amazing. The world is not falling apart. The veil of worldwide corruption is lifting. So obviously, all these things are being brought to the surface now. It seems like it's all chaos on Earth, but really, these things need to be brought to the surface so that they can be transmuted by the light. If before all these things were hidden, we didn't know about them, it didn't seem like there were bad things really going on the planet as much, but now that it's being brought to the surface now, we are able to transmute it and, get these people jailed and, put these people away for what they're doing. So it's important what is going on right now. And personally, I think like going and living in the middle of nowhere in a bunker, that's not really doing anything to help people. Like you can do that to try to just get away, like, oh, the world's falling apart, I'm just gonna go hide out in the woods somewhere. Like, okay, you can do that, it's great for you. But I think being in third dimensional reality is living in the trenches. And I think it's important that we're all here at this time to play our purpose in what is going on. And I think it's important that we are all here fighting in the trenches. So that's why personally, I'm in LA and I'm in Hollywood. There aren't many people that have my views in Hollywood. They're all mostly, brainwashed leftists, libtards. And so I want to be there to help transmute it. And I have to run into these kind of people all day and night. And I just personally, like, energetically, I can always like transmute the energy around me. So I'm always trying to do that constantly. And I think it's important, that we are in the trenches and we are facing these things instead of running off and hiding. Next slide, please. So part 2, the globalist cabal, SSP, and secret corporations. Next slide, please. So my number 1 solution for humanity is eradicating the globalist cabal. Obviously, this is the most important solution because once we get the foot off our neck, we can actually do things like start using free energy devices more, and like we can literally do anything once we get rid of this. But obviously, it's way harder than just saying it. Like, oh, let's eradicate the globalist cabal. It's way harder than what you would think it would be. But so humanity as a whole is beginning to awaken to the realization of an elite group of individuals, top 13 families, that control everything from our monetary systems to media, propaganda, and government. So we are basically indentured servants to these people, and a lot of people don't realize this. Like if you look at your, I think it's your birth certificate, it shows a number on there that can be typed into the stock exchange that shows you how much money that you make for the government. So basically we're all like cattle, and that's how they see us, and that's not right. So who are we working for? Where are these trillions? Where do these trillions of dollars disappear to? Obviously these black budget programs, and I'll get more into that later. But the global debt is now currently at 244 trillion. It's like, who do we owe money to? The Decepticons? Like where is this money going? So pedophilia scandals, elite human trafficking rings, and satanic rituals. This is all going on with this group, and I'm sure you guys all know about this, but I'm just going over it just in case you don't, I guess. A lot of people in this scene have been saying there are, I think it's more than this now, I think it's over 100,000 sealed indictments are currently in the US. 138,000, yes, I forgot to update that. So that's interesting. I think some of them have already started to come out, and a lot of those indictments are actually, there's like several people in one indictment. So it's interesting how that's going to come out. And like I said earlier, the world isn't falling apart. The veil of worldwide corruption is lifting. So we need to be positive about this because, you know, before it was all kind of a secret what was going on. People just didn't understand this was all going on. So we need to, you know, be awake to all this. Next slide, please. I know you guys all here know about the New World Order, so next slide. This is a little picture of the Georgia Guidestones. In the year 2000, there were 8 countries without a Rothschild-owned or controlled central bank. That was Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, Cuba, North Korea, Iran, and Syria. Now it is, next slide please. Iran, North Korea, and Cuba. Libya is no longer on the list. Next slide please. And there's a little bit about the Georgia Guidestones. Next slide, please. Agenda 21. So this goes with the Georgia Guidestones. You know, Agenda 21. If you don't know about it, just research it. Just kind of makes sense about the whole climate change agenda and all the agendas that are going on. Once you understand this and what is going on with this, David Icke kind of talks about, he explains all this the best. So I would look up David Icke's stuff on this, and obviously now it's Agenda 2030. It's basically a major depopulation plan. They want us all in, basically in major mega cities, and they want bullet trains between the cities, very similar to Hunger Games. Next slide, please. Mainstream media propaganda. There are 6 corporations that control 90% of media in America. Mainstream media corporations are paid off to recite a narrative that globalists wish the public to hear. Stories are twisted and facts are often completely false. So next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So my solution to this is citizen-funded journalism. I think this is very important. Some people that I like to watch are, I like to watch InfoWars. This is Caitlin Bennett from InfoWars I have over here. They're citizen-funded journalists, and what they do is they fund their whole process through supplements. So I think it's important that we have these media organizations that are citizen-funded. That way, there aren't people, you know, pharmaceutical companies walking in to these mainstream media corporations with bags of money telling them, hey, we want you spending things to this agenda. I think it's important that all mainstream media organizations are always citizen-funded, because I think this would get rid of this problem, and I think that's important. Next slide, please. And my third solution for humanity is ending internet censorship. Freedom of speech is part of our Constitution, and we should be able to exercise it on social media platforms. Big tech corporations need to uphold the Constitution. So something that's interesting with this is, you know, I've been very into politics lately and exposing all these kinds of things, and the Constitution has always been something that's very important to me. And I found out recently from a family member that my great-great-great-great-grandfather is actually Rufus King, who signed the Constitution. He was one of the last members of the Federalist Party, and he had a lot of the same views as me. So I think it's really strange that, you know, this is all kind of passed down in my blood. I don't know, it's very interesting. But I think it's really important that we uphold our freedom of speech and we don't let these mega corporations smash it, because, you know, obviously this is going on with conservatives right now. Conservatives are being censored on a major level, and it's not right. People should all be able to express their views equally, unless of course it's harming someone else. But obviously a lot of the leftists are twisting the narrative, saying that what people on the right are saying, or conservatives are saying, is harming people. So I guess, you know, you have to be careful with that. Big tech corporations need to uphold the Constitution. So another thing with this, a lot of people say maybe we could kind of see these as like utility companies, like they should be monitored. They shouldn't be able to, these, you know, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they should be, the consumers should be able to tell them what they need. And if they are going against their freedom of speech, then I mean, that's against the Constitution, so they should be jailed for that. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me that this is going on. And I think it was, someone at InfoWars was saying that it would be interesting if they were monitored almost like a country, or like the whole internet. It could, like all these different companies are on the internet, they could be held almost like monitored like its own country, and I think that's interesting. It's not a physical place, but it actually is kind of like a place. Next slide, please. Okay, my fourth solution for humanity is full disclosure. You know, all of us here, this is important to all of us. Our government has been in contact working with ET since the 40s. Many foreign world governments have come forward and released their UFO files, but not the US. Ex-Canadian Prime Minister of Defense admitted that the US has been working with at least 3 ET races. I know that really blew my mind when it came out. And these kind of facts I put on here kind of more for like crowds of, like these are the kind of facts that I tell people that don't know anything about the UFO scene and they just want proof. Like these are good facts that you can tell people, because I know everyone here obviously like believes in aliens, that's why you're here. So these are great facts that you can tell people if they're like, oh, like what proof do you have, you know? So there is currently a soft disclosure program that is only being pushed because so much information is being leaked out and the qual are being called out. You know, like they probably wouldn't even be releasing any of this. None of this would be coming out if these secret space program whistleblowers weren't coming forward and leaking it. So I think it's really great this is going on. But I think you know, a lot of people say like maybe full disclosure isn't a good idea because people would get freaked out about it, and you know, some people would run and jump off buildings because they think aliens are real. But I think like that was the older generation. I think our younger generation, I think we are kind of being programmed through the media to start becoming accustomed to the idea of working with extraterrestrials and, you know, extraterrestrials coming to our planet. So you can kind of see that going on, like little kid cartoons now. A lot of them are about aliens. It's kind of interesting. So I don't know if like, I feel like they're trying to ease it on the younger generations. I think the younger generations are more open to these ideas. Next slide, please. The secret space program. Nazi top scientists began engineering spacecraft after working with Chandler and Maria Orsig. German breakaway civilization. There's a German breakaway civilization in Antarctica. Michael Sahl's research is really interesting on this. Lots of secret space program whistleblowers have come forward with this. And this is all a part of the full disclosure, is understanding these kind of things. So I think a lot of us here know about the 20 Facts of the Secret Space Program. We don't just look at all these secret space program whistleblowers coming forward and listen to their stories because it's very interesting. Next slide, please. There are secret corporations that are hoarding technology that is highly advanced, years beyond our current mainstream technology. These devices could change the medical field and give us access to free energy very quickly if put in the right hands. These corporations are not governed and are in fact unknown to most in the government besides those with high security clearance. The corporations work in underground bases worldwide. Many investors are paid off for blueprints and their tech is kept hidden from the public in these corporations. Taxpayer dollars go to black budget programs which fund these corporations with or without our knowledge. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, part 3, suppressed technology. So if we have a spacefaring civilization, if full disclosure goes through, we would have a spacefaring civilization. And what that would mean is all this suppressed technology, all this technology has been suppressed by these programs that are, they're already working with this technology that's years beyond where we're at now. So I think it'll be interesting once this technology starts becoming released where humanity will go. Next slide, please. So spacefaring civilization. The next world order, the New World Order agenda claims that we do not have enough food, or enough room or food on the planet for more people. The Georgia Guidestones say we should maintain population on Earth at 5 billion and limit number of childbirths. If we become a spacefaring civilization with communities on planet, this would not be an issue. A spacefaring civilization could mean trade deals with other planets. Or is this already happening? Everyone's saying that it's already happening. So, next slide, please. Suppressed technologies. There have been several incredible inventions that have been purposely suppressed by our government. Often these inventors of these devices die mysteriously, and blueprints of these devices go into the hands of governments and secret corporations. Many secret space program insiders have come forward with information of technologies decades beyond what is known to be advanced in mainstream science. Next slide, please. So here are a few scientists that have come out with amazing technology, that a lot of it's free energy technology, that have been suicided or died mysteriously. So the first one I have is Nikola Tesla. Obviously he's the #1 person that comes to mind. The Wardenclyffe Tower project, free energy. So a multi-talented Tesla cut across many disciplinary boundaries. His genius gave rise to a number of world-changing inventions. One of his most famous experiments was the Wardenclyffe Tower project. It was Tesla's attempt to provide everyone on the globe with free energy through harnessing electricity from the Earth's ionosphere by means of the towers. Without wires, the towers could transmit the harnessed electricity to ground-level areas requiring it. However, Tesla's funding was stopped. His equipment and lab was burned down together with the related intellectual property because it posed a threat to undercutting the cost of the conventional electrical grid system. If Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower project had been allowed to flourish and not be destroyed, then today we would be living in a utopia. Tesla died a poverty-stricken, lonely, and forgotten man in New York City. Next slide, please. Royal Raymond Rife, the Universal High Magnification Time-Lapse Microscope, also known as the Rife Machine, for curing cancer and other diseases. The Rife Machine was developed by an American scientist and inventor, Royal Raymond Rife, in the 1920s. The machine is also called the Rife Frequency Generator. Rife and his supporters say that each disease or condition has its own electromagnetic frequency, and by finding that exact frequency and producing an impulse of the same frequency, it is possible to kill or disable disease cells. And I've been noticing on a lot of alternate media platforms lately, they've been talking about new electrical frequency devices that have been coming out that are kind of similar to the Rife Machine. So I think that it's interesting, this technology is starting to come out, but it's still obviously not used in our hospitals or in the mainstream medical programs. Next slide, please. Dr. Wilhelm Reich, Oregon Energy, Cloud Busting, and Weather Control. Wilhelm Reich built an instrument that he called the Cloud Buster, which successfully induced weather change. It has been used to break many droughts by producing clouds that make rain. This workable mechanism for making rain clouds for crop irrigation in drought areas was stopped by those ever-watchful lackeys for the ruling elite. Allowing something like this could lead to food abundance and greatly contribute to ending world hunger. However, the controllers don't want world hunger to end. If this happened, it would make it more difficult to control people in what would no longer be third world countries. Don't forget their hidden enslavement agenda. Consequently, Reich was hounded by the likes of the FDA, having accused him of fraud, deception, and his Cloudbuster instrument. His equipment was seized and destroyed. His last days were spent in prison, where it was claimed that he died of a heart attack. Next slide, please. Linus Pauling, the unified theory for curing heart disease. Linus Pauling had worked with Matthias Rath, and they came up with a unified approach to curing heart disease. Essentially, they found that heart disease is the result of long-term vitamin C deficiency. The solution is to treat patients with frequent high doses of vitamin C while using the amino acids lysine and proline to remove the atherosclerotic plaque lining the inner walls of the blood vessels that cause a narrowing or blocking of the lumen of the blood vessels, which is responsible for restricting blood flow and cardiovascular disease. However, due to greater interest in corporate profitability and perceived financial threat, this highly successful, cheap alternative therapy has not been allowed into mainstream cancer treatment protocols. Next slide, please. Stanley Meyer, the car that runs on water. Brooks Avenue just talked to me earlier and said that this actually is false. So apparently he claims that this guy didn't actually invent a car, or the car that was water didn't actually work. So I will skip this slide. when I'm corrected, I'll admit it. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. Harry Hoxsey. The Hoxsey remedies of curing cancer was developed and handed down from successive generations. Harry Hoxsey was able to use a herbal remedy and an externally applied paste to successfully treat cancer. The herbal formula detoxified the body and boosted the immune system, while the external paste got rid of tumors on the outside. From this, 17 private cancer clinics had been established throughout the USA. In the mid-50s, a number of doctors reviewed Hoxsey's work and came to the conclusion this clinic now has under treatment of observation between 4,000 and 5,000 cancer patients. It handles approximately 90 patients per day, and approximately 100 new patients per week come into clinic seeking relief, and the evidence we have seen indicates that approximately 90% of these terminal cases. Over the years, Hoxsey's clinic had accumulated more than 10,000 case histories, photographic studies, and x-ray studies from all over the United States, Canada, Alaska, Mexico, Hawaii, and the Central Time Zone, and elsewhere. The Hoxsey Cancer Clinic in Dallas, Texas had successfully treated pathologically proven cases of cancer, both internal and external, without the use of surgery, radium, or x-ray. Having the news, the AMA tried to buy the treatment. Hoxsey refused on the grounds that they would not give it to poor people free of charge. A long legal and political battle raged, and with much media interest. Several thousand people testified that they had been cured using Hoxsey's work, while the AMA refused third-party evaluations. In spite of these circumstances favoring Hoxsey and winning his case, the medical fraternity soon burned him a quack or a charlatan. He continued his treatment over the years and was arrested about 100 times. Each arrest, he was able to make bail and continue. The fact that no patient would testify against him and the acting district attorney's brother was cured by his methods may well have been the reasons for his continual reprieve. Eventually, the FDA managed to seize the remedies from his patients' homes and shut down the clinics. Ironically, Hoxsey contracted bladder cancer and had to be operated on since his methods did not work on him. This story, however, does have a good ending. A former nurse in one of his clinics, Mildred Nelson, took the treatment to Mexico. The clinic, under a different name, still exists to this day, and by all accounts is deemed to a compassionate, caring, and most of all successful 80% cure rate with medical records to prove it. The authorities, the NCI, have deliberately looked the other way. Next slide, please. And lastly, the Nazi flying saucer technology. The Nazis developed anti-gravity flying saucer technology during World War II. It has been said that a secret base was made in Antarctica, which housed them, which I talked about earlier, secret space program. Then in the latter part of 1945, these super weapons moved to another military base, the Schwarz Zone, Black Sun, on the dark side of the moon. Using the saucers on the dark side of the moon when the time was right, an Earth invasion was planned but didn't materialize. During the wartime, a number of eyewitness accounts in London, New York, and Prague reported these strange-looking bell-shaped flying objects having the German military Iron Cross insignia flying at very high speeds. An engineer named Joseph Andreas Epp claimed that he had been involved in the development of the technology during the wartime, and that Schreier-Habermas project involved some 15 different prototypes. What happened in this technology in the years after World War II? Obviously, it's been developed much more since then. Next slide, please. Here's an example of someone working with some Tesla technology. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I think this is my fifth solution for humanity. This is my fifth solution. Restoring the global energy grid, the pyramids. So originally when I started doing my presentation, working on this presentation, I wanted it to only be about this. But then I realized this is a great solution for humanity, and I think there are many other great solutions for humanity. So I ended up kind of just making the presentation on solutions for humanity. But basically there's a global energy grid. If you haven't heard of Larry Dean Hunter's work, it's really interesting. You should definitely look him up. So research by Larry Dean Hunter shows that the pyramids were once large power plants used for harvesting the energy of the sun, which reflected off the white limestone and interconnected with other pyramids across the planet. The technology is similar to Tesla coil free energy device, like we talked about earlier. Ancient civilizations could have harvested the energy from these across the planet. This knowledge was lost due to ancient cataclysms, but is being rediscovered. What if we could restore these pyramids to their original use? What would that mean for society or our planet as a whole? Obviously, this would be a major project, and a lot of historical people probably wouldn't want the pyramids being messed with, but I think it would be interesting if we did restore all these and brought them back to their original use, and we could tap into that. I think it would be an amazing thing for humanity, and I think we should do this. Pyramids also have several other uses, such as desalinating water and restoring the health of individuals who spend time inside, especially when referring to the Bosnian pyramids. So you can just, research all this on your own time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. I thought this was interesting. I really like, all the flat top pyramids. It's like, why do they have a flat top? And I think they were used for this purpose in ancient times. Next slide, please. And imagine the possibilities. What could we do if we did have this global energy grid and we put it back to its original use? It would be really incredible. Next slide, please. So part 4, this is the final part. Society and infrastructure. Next slide, please. Okay, sixth solution for humanity is the homeless integration program. This wouldn't be necessary, this program wouldn't be necessary if we implement the new ways of doing communities that I will talk about later. But for now, I think it would be great if we could enact this. So with our current system of government, citizens would get a bill passed to have a percentage of taxpayer dollars go to building shelters in every major city for the homeless. These centers would have their own community service-oriented paid work programs. Mental health problems is a major cause of homelessness. These centers could have a hospital floor dedicated to providing services to the mentally disabled. This could also have volunteer-run activities to give these patients a healthy and fun way of life while keeping them off the streets. And next slide, please. Some statistics. 10% of homeless people in the United States are veterans. 23% have no shelter, and 11% are victims of domestic violence. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And I live in LA. I'm out here from LA right now, and it is very disturbing, the homelessness problem in LA, how it's increased in just the past year. I live in downtown LA, I just moved there. I live in the financial district, and I've noticed in the past year, it's just, there used to be like 1 or 2 streets just filled with tents, usually like Skid Row, some of the streets around it, but recently Democrats passed this bill where they could just set up the tents anywhere, so now literally the entire size of the roads and the freeways and all over Hollywood, all over the place, are just covered in tents, and it is bringing diseases, and tuberculosis is becoming a common issue now, and I think even they mentioned the Black Plague, some people have gotten it, so it's a major issue, and it's really disturbing. It sucks like driving around LA and just seeing all this horrible homelessness just going on, just it's like all of the sides of the streets, just tents and trash, and Obviously, we need to have empathy for these people, but we should have a program. California, Los Angeles has some of the richest people in America. A lot of these people that live in LA are like millionaires and billionaires. Why can't they do something about this? Like, seriously, it's a huge problem. So I think community service projects are also an important part of, I think it's important that we're all involved in our community. Personally, I've been doing community service projects since I was a kid, charity projects, like ever since I can remember. I always did, feeding the homeless things for my church and school, and my youth group would always go around to like different nursing homes. I would play guitar for different nursing homes and things like that. So I think community service projects are fun, and I think we should all be involved in them. Like, it's always good to be involved in your community and help out others. In every community, you can just Google it, find some. My favorite project is the Disclosure Fest Foundation. They've been doing a lot of cool things in LA. They haven't really brought it out to other places as much, but in LA, we did something earlier in the year. This is actually a picture of me and Adrian Valeri, who's the one that runs Disclosure Fest. We did a little Feeding the Homeless project on Skid Row, and we just all collected as many items like clothes and whatnot, toys for kids that we could. And I actually had a whole my entire Lincoln Navigator was just filled with bags. I just went around and asked my friends, I'm like, do you guys have like extra clothes you don't need? And it was surprising to me how many friends of mine they just gave me giant trash bags full of clothes, and I had my entire Lincoln just filled with clothes and toys and brought it down there. And several other people did too, and we had a really nice day. We were playing like Tupac, and we had one area where people were like getting shaved, and they had another tent where people were doing energy work on the different homeless people, and so it's kind of fun doing these kind of projects. And if you think about it, it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Enabling in a way, because like it kind of made me sad when I walked away and the streets were just kind of strewn with the clothes that we gave everyone. But obviously, if we integrate these programs, like this is the only way we can really help now, unless we start integrating these kind of programs, or we do the communities that I talk about later. Next slide, please. There's another picture from Disclosure Fest. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. They let me do it, since I'm an artist, they had me do a little project on Skid Row. They had me graffiti a building with some people just to brighten up the area because it looks so bland and bleak over there. So that was kind of fun. Next slide, please. So healthcare. Hospitals are businesses and patients are its customers. To keep customers coming back, doctors cannot fully resolve issues, but instead assign big pharma drug prescriptions, which cause a myriad of new health issues. Cures and advanced medical technology will not be released for this reason. The whole healthcare system is just, my entire life, I was always raised by, energy healers, so my uncle always told me that hospitals were looking for customers and not patients. So that always stuck with me, and I've actually experienced this recently. I went against my better judgment to take pharmaceutical things for an issue I've been having, and it made it 10 times worse, and it was a major problem, and I can't believe I went against my better judgment to do that when I could have just used herbs or done something holistically. So we have to keep these things in mind. If you take like these big pharmaceuticals, they usually cause like 10 other problems in your body. So you need to keep these kind of things in mind. But obviously, if you have a problem that can't be solved unless you use like antibiotics or something, obviously you need to take them. Cures and advanced medical technology will not be released for this reason. I'll get into this in the next slide. Next slide, please. So big pharma. Nearly 70% of Americans are on at least one prescription drug. Over half of Americans take 2 prescription drugs, and 20% of Americans are on at least 5 prescription drugs. For every $1 per pharmaceutical company spend on R&D for a new drug, they spend $19 on advertising for that drug. 51% of drugs prescribed to Americans are generics, but they only make up 8% of the country's total amount spent on drugs. The other 49% are the drugs with exclusive marketing rights, which makes up 92% of the total drug spending. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The percent markup of the prescription drug Xanax is approximately 570,000%. That means that the consumer cost per 100 tablets is roughly $137, while the cost of the active ingredients is only 0.24 cents in the United States. The cost of prescription drugs rises 12% every year. In 2012, the 12 new to market drugs approved by the FDA, 11 of them were priced above $100,000 per patient per year. Over 70 million Americans take mind-altering drugs. 1 in 4 senior citizens skip doses of their prescribed medications in an attempt to reduce the amount of money that they spend on drugs. In 2017, drug overdoses killed over 72,000 Americans. A majority of the deaths, nearly 49,000, was caused by opioids, according to new data. And the biggest driver was the dangerous synthetic opioid fentanyl, which killed more than 29,000 people, followed by heroin and other drugs. That was in 2017, so, I mean, obviously fentanyl has become much worse of a problem recently, and I know for me that hits close to home because I have had several people I love dearly die from it. So, it's a huge problem. Next slide, please. Holistic health. So the solution to this is holistic health. I think the entire healthcare system should be holistic. It shouldn't be pharmaceutically run. So we should look at all areas of our health. If we go, I think we should have like healing centers. I'll go into this in the next slide, but all the areas that they would cover would be spirituality, self-esteem, health, exercise, relationships, home environment, play, money, work, and life purpose. Next slide, please. So holistic healthcare options. I think we should have energy healing centers. I think it would be interesting if we actually had energy healing centers in hospitals, because obviously if you break a leg or something, you need doctors to help put it back together. But I think for other issues, like maybe in the center could be the energy healing centers, we could have practitioners where people can go there first and try to have these problems worked on energetically. And then, and also, you know, get prescribed different herbs and things like that. And if those don't work, then eventually they can use the more drastic options. New technology, frequency devices have been discovered to cure cancer and many diseases. I talked about this earlier with the suppressed technology. This technology is mostly suppressed, but not becoming available underground. Obviously, you should always be eating organic, non-GMO food. Like I said earlier, if you aren't, it could cause a myriad of issues in your body, so you just need to make sure you're always eating organic and non-GMO as much as you can. And another option is the SSP medical pod technology. Next slide. I'll show you that. So you can scroll through these, a few slides of these. The Secret Space program has this medical pod technology. I think if it were, several insiders have come forward and talked about it, and I think if it were released, it would be very interesting because apparently it has these things that, you know, it's like robotic kind of AI, but it can perform small surgeries with incisions, and it has many different uses. So just research those is very interesting, and that's some technology that apparently we already have that isn't being used. So next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, education. Education should be catered towards the individual's learning abilities and unique assets. Personally, when I was in school, I was always like bottom of my class at math, at top of my class at reading and writing, just because that's just the way I am. I'm an artist, and math isn't something that really is my forte. And I think the current education system is kind of unfair. It's not catered towards the individual. Many people, I will talk about this later, but many people work with different brainwave types. Like a large percentage of kids, like 80% of kids, think in primarily beta brainwave state, but some smaller percentage, I'll get into this later, but here, I'm going to keep talking on this. So Obviously, I think there's new ways of doing schools where if a kid, once they start seeing these abilities in a kid, they can start directing them towards different classes that would advance those abilities that they already have, that they have naturally. So I think that's important. I think we should be running the education system more in that way, instead of just like forcing kids to do things that like they're not, really capable of. And, a lot of people can't go to college because they're not good at certain things, and it's not fair, So I think that just the education system in general should always be catered towards the individual. Meditation in a place of detention in schools has been proven to make a big difference in behavior. That's one interesting thing we could do the education system. A lot of studies have been coming out with this lately, and a lot of schools have been doing this, and I think it's a great idea. I wish they would have done that when I was in school. ADD, ADHD is not a disorder. These children are merely dialed into different brainwave states. Read the book The Wayseers. This really helped me understand this whole thing. So I was talking a little bit about this earlier. I might have a slide after this on this, but basically Wayseers by Garrett John Laporto. Read that if you get the chance. So most kids, they think in primarily beta brainwave state. But people that are ADD, ADHD, or bipolar, or just artistic type people in general, they think in primarily alpha theta brainwave state. So I think it's important. So the mainstream school system, they kind of care more towards the beta brainwave state thinking kids, which is kind of hyper-focused, learning information quick, regurgitating it, and then nothing really sets in. Whereas if you're alpha theta brainwave state, you think more in wholes. So you may be using a smaller percentage of your brain a lot of the time, but then you use a larger percent of it in like spurts. Then you use more percent of your brain than someone that has beta brainwave state. They would be using a higher percentage of their brain longer periods of time, but they never really think in wholes. So someone that is ADD, ADHD, they usually think in images, whereas people that are beta brainwave state don't. And so it's just using different areas of the brain. So kids that think in this way should have a different place to learn instead of being fed drugs. Did we skip a slide? Can you go back, please? Yep, back, please. Okay, forward. Sorry. No, back, please. Here. So I'll get in a little about the different kids that are incarnating right now. There was a few different waves. So the Indigo Children, they naturally recognize how unique and special they are. Even at any tender age, they just know they're different and empowered. They exude confidence and profound self-worth. They are strong-willed and independent. They do not believe in the authority for dogma. They are wise and caring beyond their young bodies. They are not impacted by traditional parenting, like being dictated on what or what not to do. They can be reactive emotionally. Some of them usually struggle with depression, anxiety, and melancholia. They recognize the weaknesses of our education system and are more attracted to experiential learning. They can sometimes feel lost and disconnected when they are not able to meet and connect with like-minded people. They're insightful and they usually think outside the box. They're restless and excited. Sometimes they are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD because they think quickly and require moving faster. They are very intuitive and can sense what is unseen and even unexplainable. They sometimes have a difficult time trying to find out their real purpose in the world because of the many emotional and spiritual factors inside them, and the lack of support outside. They are empathic and sensitive, and they can tell if food or other stimuli is not good or healthy for them. They have incredible gifts, therefore they must be nurtured as well. Next slide, please. Crystal children. They have psychic power, they can sense what is hidden, and they can perceive what is uncertain. They are able to sing first before they can talk, and they have deep connection with music. They communicate richly and non-verbally. They honor honesty, and they know when you are lying. They honor truth in others, and they can sense authenticity. They are easygoing, friendly, and warm. They treat others like friends, and they are not fueled by suspicion when meeting strangers. They are highly sensitive to pollutants and other toxic elements in the environment, food, and even other people's behaviors. They are open to people who have open minds, hearts, and hands. They delight in humanness of others and value compassion and kindness at all times. They care for beings around them, plants, animals, and even the smallest of creatures. They have a very strong relationship with natural environment, and they enjoy being out in nature, being close to bodies of water and under the stars. They do not fit in the social mold, the usual mold of the ordinary child. Sometimes this can even lead to being diagnosed with autism. They thrive because they follow the songs of their souls. Next slide, please. Rainbow children. A rainbow child is usually born to a crystal adult. Rainbow children choose to incarnate into stable families, whereas their predecessors, the indigos, chose dysfunctional environments. Rainbows are new souls. They come without the baggage of previous incarnations. They're usually psychic or extremely intuitive. They accept their psychic gifts as a normal part of their life, and it's not a big deal to them. They are hyperactive and high energy, and you may feel a buzz when you're near one, as their personal energy fields vibrate so intensely. A rainbow child might need to run everywhere or to start hopping, skipping, and jumping spontaneously. They are drawn to bright colors, the brighter the better. Their male-female characteristics are balanced, and hence the emergence of gender-neutral culture. They are passionate, creative, and enthusiastic, and if you had to assign a Truro suit to them, it would be Juan's fire. They are impervious to low energy vibration, shrugging it off and moving on. You can research this all later. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Here's a little diagram that shows what is common between the traits of indigo children and children who have ADHD. So obviously, it's basically a lot of the same things they have in common. So it's kind of the same thing. Like really, like someone who is an indigo child, they could be diagnosed with ADHD when it's not really a problem. It's just who they are. Next slide, please. So I talked about the waist tears earlier. Basically, what a waist tear is if you think in alpha theta brainwave state primarily, then you have a more DNA gene. In ancient times, this would be the hunters. So now they're the artists and the entrepreneurs and the more, what am I thinking? Basically the pioneer types. Basically they think in wholes. So usually they kind of need more rest most of the time than someone who thinks in beta brainwave state, but that's because they put all their energy to what they're doing when they go into it. That's why in ancient times they would have been the hunters, but now they're the artists, the musicians, athletes, people like that, who obviously those kind of people, they have a lot of downtime, but when they do what they are doing, then they put all their energy into it. So I think this is really interesting, and if you feel you're one of these people, I'll list like the attributes here later, then definitely read this book because it helped me a lot. It helped me understand a lot of things about what I needed to do differently. Like one simple thing is just walking in the grass in the morning. That really helps you be more connected, and because usually like we're kind of more like out of our bodies. So yeah, next slide please. Here's some of the attributes to someone who's a wasteer. Impulsive, irrepressible, energetic, nonconformist, intuitive, distractible, insightful, sensation-seeking, rebellious, short attention span, charismatic, thrill-seeking, addictive personality, moody, ambitious, inquisitive, fearless, lateral thinker, metaphorical thinker, creative, big picture oriented, hyper-focused and hypomaniac at times, and lazy at other times, and runs hot and cold. Next slide, please. Meditation in school. So I talked about this earlier. Here's some more on it. One thing that moms are perpetually concerned about is kids' attention. Studies have shown the effects of meditation on attention in adults with and without ADD, ADHD. And there's some evidence that it can help kids focus too. One 2004 study found that children with ADHD who learned meditation with their parents twice weekly in a clinic setting and kept practicing at home had better concentration at school, among other benefits. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for children has also been shown to help improve attention and behavior problems and reduce anxiety in kids who started out with high anxiety levels. A study in 2013 showed that in boys with ADHD, an 8-week training in mindfulness significantly reduced hyperactive behaviors and improved concentration. Other studies have pointed to similar results, and more are currently underway to continue exploring the connection. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yoga in schools, I think that would be interesting. Instead of just regular gym class, like throwing balls around, or, that's what I had to do in gym class. I hate sports with balls, personally. But I think it would be interesting if, as soon as we started school, we always did yoga in gym class every day. You'd be more flexible, and it would help the children be more grounded. Next slide, please. Government and politics. Like I said earlier, I am part of the Free and Equal Elections Committee, More Voices, More Choices. We're all about all the parties being able to run on an equal platform, and I think that is important to solving the separation that's going on with the dual party system right now. Blockchain voting is a new way of voting that I think could work out. I don't know if that can be hacked by AI, so that's something to look into, but someone that's in our organization said that it's actually very secure, so it might be something we can look at for voting in the future. Eliminating mainstream media propaganda, that's like major in politics right now. Just look at the media, I don't even want to get into it. It's just like one big stupid bandwagon they want everyone to be on, and it's like, how do you not see that? This propaganda they're putting out, it's just ridiculous. Politicians in areas of the government such as the Senate and Congress should be replaced with a think tank, experts from many areas of study who can work together to solve issues the most intellectual way possible. So I think people that should be debating issues, they shouldn't just be politicians who just went to school and trained to be politicians, people that talk on stage. They should be people that have backgrounds, like maybe someone that is like an electrical engineer, someone that knows how to develop infrastructure correctly, medical types, just people of every type that are like the top of what they're doing in their careers. I think they should all just be brought together in like a think tank to kind of solve different issues and put together bills and things for our country. So the next thing I'm going to talk about with politics is nationalism versus globalism. Obviously, this has been something that everyone's been talking about lately. It's basically been right versus left, nationalism versus globalism, and I'm going to talk about the differences between the two, but before I get into that, I want to say globalism doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but obviously it could be a great thing, but it's a bad thing in the way that they want it to be done right now, and we have to look at that as important to think about, because the globalist program that they want right now would be ruled by a power elite, and they do not have good plans for us, and this is part of the whole Agenda 21, everything I talked about earlier. So just know that, I think maybe it would be interesting if we can merge the two concepts. Like, it doesn't have to be this versus that. We need to look at both of them. So next slide, please. New World Order is a globalist agenda. So globalism is the idea of opening up borders in order to bring the entire world together under one economic and political umbrella, with the presumption that peace can be achieved through the creation of a single system of international law, which has the ability to trump the national laws of sovereign countries. Nationalism is the idea of protecting the sovereignty of individual countries in order to preserve the current culture, laws, and economy of such society. The next slide, before I go into it, okay, I guess you went into it. I just wanted to say before we got into this that, I don't promote separation, but I mean, this side of globalism, what I have up here, that kind of represents the globalism that is being used in the wrong way. Like I said, we could do globalism in a right way, or we could merge the two, but this is kind of what's going on right now. So globalism right now, no rights for anyone except the elite. The Constitution is abolished. A crippled economy that benefits only the 1%, small business is illegal. National chaos, a shame with mutual hatred between all people. Decaying and rotting cities and towns with an infrastructure that is collapsing. No opportunity to escape social and economic hell, no upward mobility. And obviously this has a lot to do with going in this direction, would be going in the direction of socialism and communism. Total contempt for all human life, Planned Parenthood selling baby parts. No freedom of speech, thought, or expression. All dissent is illegal. So I'm going to get to the other side. So nationalism, life, liberty, and happiness for all people. Basic human rights for all, guaranteed by the Constitution. A booming economy powered by small business. National unity and pride with mutual respect between all people. Powerfully engineered modern cities and towns with an infrastructure that is always improving. The opportunity to climb the social economic ladder, upward mobility. An appreciation for all human life, including those in the womb. Freedom of speech, thought, and expression. A military that protects America instead of empire building. Preserves the cultural, artistic, intellectual, and religious heritage of America. The rights to bear arms so that we can protect ourselves and our families. I think the Second Amendment is very important. A lot of people in the spiritual community are kind of like on the fence about it, but I think it's important that we uphold the Constitution. And I think with all these school shootings are going on, I think it would be an important solution if these schools, if teachers were able to have concealed carry. I think that would be an amazing thing, because you know, like obviously not where the kids would see it and it would scare the kids, but if teachers that were comfortable with it, maybe like a few teachers in the school that are comfortable with having concealed carry were allowed to have that, then when these situations arise, the children would be protected. And why, I don't understand why they don't think that that's a good option. Obviously, to me, that is like the #1 solution to that problem. Next slide, please. Globalism, what we're told it is, and what it really is. Next slide, please. And just read this, you know. Let's not play into the separation. I think that's very important. And you know, obviously the previous slide, it kind of showed the separation, but I think it's important that, you know, I don't know, if it's someone you think they're on the wrong side, you can still kind of come together and try to unite on certain belief points. And if they were like that heavily brainwashed, like I always like to tell people, you know, if like you're a Trump supporter, someone's, you know, a Democrat, and they are like, oh, like, you know, Trump is a racist, you can say, you just tell them facts. You don't have to be like, oh, and like, you know, start arguing with them. You can say like, you know, but don't you think it's interesting that he has a black woman that he signed over his entire corporation to? Why would someone who's racist or sexist do that? You know, like, you can just say things like that to people. Instead of triggering them, just give them a little information, let them think about it. Next slide, please. We could have this, but we keep voting for this. But not the last time, so hopefully we don't this time. Next slide, please. Environment. The climate change agenda, I mean, obviously that's the main thing in mainstream media right now, is this whole climate change agenda with Greta Thunberg, and it's so annoying, because obviously it's a big distraction from what is really going on, which is geoengineering, HARP, and weather modification patents. So we're being distracted from these things can affect the weather and the climate, and they are trying to distract us from this. So free energy technology could also eliminate fossil fuels. We already have free energy technology, so obviously these people that are flying around private jets preaching climate change, they know this and they don't care, because that's not what their agenda is. They're not trying to make the planet better. They have a different agenda than that. Next slide, please. Here's some solutions. Well, this isn't really solutions for the climate, but some better solutions for the environment. I think a major solution that would help out the oceans is make single-use plastics biodegradable. We need to switch products that are made from plastic or other materials that are harmful for the environment to biodegradable plastics. Some of these great alternatives include bioplastics, reused glass bottles, reusable bags, washable mesh produce bags, reusable food wraps, and compostable bags. Next slide, please. Bioplastics. So obviously a lot of people might not want to take the time to refill a glass bottle or reuse a bag. That can be kind of annoying. So bioplastics is a great alternative. Bioplastics are plastics derived from renewable biomass sources such as vegetable fats and oils, cornstarch, straw, wood chips, food waste, etc. Bioplastics can be made from agricultural byproducts and also from used plastic bottles and other containers using microorganisms. Common plastics such as fossil fuel plastics, also called petrol-based polymers, are derived from petroleum or natural gas. Not all bioplastics are biodegradable, nor biodegrade more readily than commodity fossil fuel-derived plastics. Bioplastics are usually derived from sugar derivatives including starch, cellulose, and lactic acid. As of 2014, bioplastics represented approximately 0.2% of the global polymer market, 300 million tons. The following examples are types of bioplastics. Next slide. Starch-based plastics. Thermoplastic starch currently represents the most widely used bioplastic, constituting about 50% of the bioplastics market. I'm not going to go into all these details, I don't want to waste time with it. Just, I will show you the different types of bioplastics, and if you want to know more about the details on how they're made, you can research that yourself. So next slide, please. Cellulose-based bioplastics. Cellulose-based bioplastics are mainly the cellulose esters, including cellulose, acetane, and nitrocellulose, and other derivatives, including celluloid. Next slide, please. Protein-based plastics. Bioplastics can be made from proteins from different sources. For example, wheat, gluten, and casein show promising properties as a raw material for different biodegradable polymers. Next slide, please. So the biodegradation of bioplastics, biodegradation of any plastic is a process that happens at solid-liquid interface whereby the enzymes in the liquid phase depolymerize the solid phase. Both bioplastics and conventional plastics containing additives are able to biodegrade. Bioplastics are able to biodegrade in different environments, hence they are more acceptable than constitutional plastics, or conventional plastics. Biodegradability of bioplastics occurs under various environmental conditions, including soil, aquatic environment, and compost. Next slide, please. Here's the Ocean Cleanup Project. This is something cool to look into. It's a project going on that I think is great. We need to get rid of all these islands of garbage in the middle of the ocean, because if our ocean becomes stagnant, then we're dead. Next slide, please. Hempcrete, this is a great solution for building with, and I will get into earthships later that these can be used for. Hempcrete is made from lime and hemp sheaves, a waste product from hemp fiber growing. It can be used for walls, floors, and for roof insulation. It's breathable, absorbing, and emitting moisture to regulate internal humidity and avoid trapped moisture and mold growth. It provides excellent acoustic and thermal insulation and thermal mass. It's lightweight and reduces construction costs and is environmentally friendly. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the last part of my presentation, which is the most important part to me. I think there's new ways there are already options out there of different ways we could be having our civilizations that we are implementing that are really incredible. And it's interesting to me, like I followed the Venus Project for a long time, I'll get into it in a second, but it's interesting to me that a lot of people don't know about it. I found out about it in high school, and the designs that are incredible, and we already have the ability to make all these designs that are shown right here, which would be way better for the environment, for us, and just would simplify everything, but we're not doing it, and we should be. So the Venus Project is an organization that proposes a feasible plan of action for social change. a holistic global socio-economic system called a resource-based economy that works towards a peaceful and sustainable global civilization. It outlines an alternative to strive toward where human rights are not paper proclamations, but also a way of life. Next slide, please. The Venus Project presents an alternative vision for a sustainable world civilization unlike any political, economic, or social system that has gone before. It envisions a time in the near future when money, politics, self, and national interests have been phased out. Although this vision may seem idealistic, it is based upon years of study and experimental research. It spans the gamut from education, transportation, and clean sources of energy to total city systems. Next slide, please. Community-centered culture. This is kind of, if you've been to Burning Man, you know about Burning Man. The way that they lay out the community there is very similar to these. I think circular communities are very interesting. I'll get into this in a second, but the earth is abundant and has plentiful resources. Our practice of rationing the resources through monetary control is no longer relevant and is counterproductive to our survival. Today we have highly advanced technologies, but our social and economic systems has not kept up with our technological capabilities. We could easily create a world of abundance for all, free of servitude and debt based on the carrying capacity of Earth's resources. With the intelligent and humane application of science and technology, humanity can guide and shape the future together while protecting the environment. We don't need to have enough money to accomplish these ends, but we do have more than enough resources. Next slide, please. Circular communities. So I just love these designs. I think they're incredible. Before I get into this, one thing that's interesting about them is like when usually like, you know, in the way everything's set up now, if we drive, we have to go around the side of town, all the way to the end of town, then come all the way back. And with a circular community, when you set out to go to the store or whatever, or I guess here would be like a food center, you go out and you just go around and come back to where you started. So it's more efficient. And all the layouts of the infrastructure with the Venus Project are all like this. And I think we should be doing things like this. It would just make everything a lot easier for everyone. The Venus Project proposes a circular city plan that would utilize the most sophisticated available resources and construction techniques. Its geometrically elegant and efficient circular arrangement will be surrounded by parks and lovely gardens, which will be incorporated into the city design. All cities will be designed to operate with minimum expenditure of energy using the cleanest technologies possible, which will be in harmony with nature to obtain the highest possible standard of living for everyone. The city is divided into radial sectors and circular belts. The circular scheme offers maximum efficiency, bringing each radial sector closer to the central dome. People traveling within the city could easily return to the same place where they started without having to take the same route back like in most linear cities. Only one part of the city is designed and replicated 8 times to form the entire city using far fewer resources than conventional methods. Next slide, please. Circular city layout. A typical circular city is comprised of the following. The central dome or theme center will house the core of the cybernated system, educational facilities, computerized communications and networking systems, health and childcare facilities. So all the important community-oriented things would be in the center. The 8 buildings surrounding the central dome contain the access centers. The 3 rings of buildings adjacent to the access centers house the research facilities. The next band provides the community with centers for cultural activities such as arts, theater, exhibitions, concerts, exercise facilities, and various forms of entertainment. There are also dining and other amenities. The 8 residential districts have a variety of free-form, unique architecture to fulfill the various needs of the occupant. Each home is immersed in lovely gardens, isolating one from another with lush landscaping. The skyscrapers will be a convenient place to live, housing restaurants, educational facilities, entertainment, hobby areas, along with apartments. Usually with these apartments, buildings, and the designs they use for these, a lot of times they have hospitals or like healthcare centers in the center of the building. So like your apartments and everything would be around it. If you choose to live in an apartment with this, these kind of communities, you can choose to be in an apartment if you want to be. If you don't want to be, you don't have to be. You can get a house more separated, which I'll show later. Next are the indoor hydroponic, aeroponic, and aquaponic facilities and outdoor agricultural belts, which will be used to grow a wide variety of organic plants without the use of pesticides. So that would be around the outer sides, so we would have hydroponic gardens and parks and things like that around the outer sides of it, which I think would be really incredible, because then every community would be growing its own food and they would all be self-sustaining. A circular waterway for irrigation filtration surrounds the agricultural belt. So that would be this right here. The outermost perimeter is utilized for recreational activities such as biking, golfing, hiking, and riding. Areas are set aside for renewable, clean sources of energy such as wind generators, solar heat concentrating systems, geothermal, and photovoltaic, and others. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Self-contained dwellings. So these are the housing that I mentioned that would be outside the circular community area. If you are a person like me who prefers to not live around a bunch of people. The architectural and individual dwellings of circular cities will evolve on an entirely different basis from today's houses. Their structural elements will be flexible and coherently arranged to best serve the individual preference. The prefabricated modular homes embodying a high degree of flexibility could be built any place, or one might imagine, amidst forests, atop mountains, or on remote islands. Or it could be inside the circular city if you choose. A house in the residential, that would be in the residential belt. All of these dwellings can be designed as self-contained residences with their own thermal generators and heat concentrators. Photovoltaic arrays would be built into the skin of the building and into the windows themselves. Thermal panes would be used to tent out the bright sunlight by variable patterns of shading. All these features could be selected by the occupants to supply more than enough of the energy required to operate the entire household. Homes could be prefabricated of a new type of pre-stressed rainforest concrete with a flexible ceramic external coating that would be relatively maintenance-free, fireproof, and impervious to the weather. This thin shell construction can be mass-produced in a matter of hours. With this type of construction, there would be minimal damage from earthquakes and hurricanes. A modular skyscraper can be constructed from prefabricated extrusions. Maintaining a balance between the population and the Earth's carrying capacity, we may have to move our cities not only skyward, but also seaward and subterranean as well. And I will get into these designs in a second. They're really incredible as well. Next slide, please. University cities for global resource management. The circular cities would act as universities for global resource management and environmental studies, and as testing grounds for each future phase of global development. These could be dynamic, continually evolving research institutes open to all society. Student performance would be based on competence, accreditation, and research findings would be periodically applied directly to the social structure to benefit all members of the world society. People will live in these research cities and provide feedback on reliability and serviceability of the various structures. This information would be used to formulate modifications to structures so that maximum efficiency, comfort, and safety is assured. These facilities are also used to develop modular construction systems and components that can be installed to serve a wide range of needs and preferences. In most instances, the external appearance of the buildings will reflect the function of the building. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Free energy-oriented culture. If free energy devices and blueprints were implemented into society, we could use the tech for free energy transportation. Citizens would travel the planet freely at will. There are many forms of renewable energy sources that could supply the world with more power than the current global needs. The The sources mentioned in the next slides are just some examples of renewables. Evidently, if the potential of only one of these sources is harnessed efficiently and utilized intelligently, it would supply more than enough to meet the current energy demands. Combining all renewable sources allows us to build a technologically advanced society with tremendous capabilities. Next slide, please. So here's some examples of different kinds of free energy technologies that we could be implementing. Obviously, we already use solar energy. Solar power is the conversion of sunlight into electricity, either directly using photovoltaics or directly using concentrated solar power. And I mentioned this also with the pyramids, the global pyramid energy grid. We could be harvesting our solar power into that as well if we restore those. Next slide, please. The power of strong wind. The power of strong onshore and offshore winds can be extracted from airflow using wind turbines to produce mechanical or electrical energy. Wind power is plentiful, renewable, widely distributed, clean, produces no greenhouse gas emissions during operation, and uses little land. The global potential for extracting electrical energy from wind has been estimated to be more than 5 times total global annual energy demands. Next slide, please. Wave power. Wave power is the transport of energy by ocean surface waves and the capture of that energy for electrical generation, water desalination, or the pumping of water into reservoirs. Locations are shoreline, near shoreline, and offshore. Types of power takeoff include hydraulic ram, elastomeric hose pump, pumps to shore, hydroelectric turbine, air turbine, and linear electrical generator. Harnessing the energy produced by waves could produce another form of clean and limitless energy source. Next slide. Tidal. Tidal power of tidal energy is a form of hydropower that converts the energy obtained from tides into electrical power. The incoming water is contained in large storage ponds, and as the tide goes out, it turns water wheels that converted the mechanical energy into electrical via turbines. Although the electrical energy that would be currently produced from tides is relatively low compared to other renewable sources, the newer technologies that could harness much larger volumes of tidal power. Next slide, please. Geothermal. As refinements and conversion technologies increase feasibility, geothermal power will come to take on a more prominent role. Readily available in various geographical regions throughout the world, both on land and under the sea, this power source alone could provide enough clean energy for the next 1,000 years. Next slide, please. Hydroelectric energy. Hydroelectric energy is the production of electric power through the use of gravitational force of falling or flowing water. A land bridge or tunnel might be constructed across the Bering Strait. The primary function of this span would be to generate electricity and house facilities for collecting and processing marine products. Beneath and above the ocean surface would be tunnels for the transport of both passengers and freight. Not only would the structure provide a physical link between Asia and North America, it could also serve as an avenue for the social and cultural exchange. This land bridge would perhaps serve as a base for the development of clean fusion power. Pipelines to conduct fresh water from melting icebergs to other parts of the world may also be incorporated. Next slide, please. Thorium. Thorium-based nuclear power is nuclear reactor-based electrical power generation, fueled primarily by the nuclear fission of the isotope uranium-233 produced from the fertile element thorium. A thorium fuel cycle offers several advantages over uranium fuel cycle, including much greater abundance on Earth, superior physical and nuclear fuel properties, and reduced nuclear waste production. Thorium is key to developing a new generation of cleaner, safer nuclear power. A group of scientists at the Georgia Institute of Technology concluded that the supply of thorium for production of electrical power could last more than 1,000 years. Next slide, please. osmotic power. Osmotic power is the energy available from the difference in salt and concentration between seawater and river water. Two practical methods of this are reverse electrodialysis and pressure-retarded osmosis. Both processes rely on osmosis with ion-specific membranes. The key waste product is brackish water, and the technologies have been confirmed in laboratory conditions. Other methods have been proposed and are currently under development, such as method based on electric double-layer capacitor technology and a method based on vapor pressure difference. This is yet another source of renewable clean energy that could be utilized. Next slide, please. Ocean thermal energy conversion. OTEC uses the temperature difference between cooler, deep, and warmer, shallow, or surface seawaters to run a heat engine and produce electricity. The resource potential for OTEC is considered to be much larger than any other ocean energy forms. OTEC can also supply quantities of cold water as a byproduct. This can be used for air conditioning and refrigeration, and the nutrient-rich deep ocean water can feed biological technologies. Another byproduct is fresh water distilled from the sea. There are many applications when such technology is used humanely and with environmental concern. Next slide, please. Underwater turbines. Ocean currents are one source of natural energy that no one has tapped before. Using giant underwater turbines with more rotational force or torque, the energy from deep ocean currents such as Gulf Stream or off coast of Florida can be converted into clean electric power. These slow rotating turbines would have a centrifugal separator and deflectors to prevent harm to marine life. A technology that harnesses the power of ocean currents could provide another form of clean and limitless renewable energy. The information provided about the different renewable sources of power has been taken from widely known sources such as Wikipedia and other sites. Next slide, please. Here's some examples. Next slide, please. Different other ocean living facilities like I talked about earlier. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Infrastructure. The construction of the new cities involves methods significantly different from the ones used today. Fast and reliable construction techniques take advantage of prefabricated material extrusion and various alloys from memory characteristics. The materials most of these buildings are made of are high in strength, light in weight, and resistant to foreign factors such as weather and insects. Material with memory characteristics allow for design flexibility as well as intelligent resource utilization. Each of these solutions below are only examples of what could be done if we use science and technology with human and environmental concern. And this is an example of a way the airports could be laid out. It's kind of similar to the circular community design. So, you know, the planes could fly in and go around in a circle to go to the facility instead of having these large laid out planes that are taking up lots of space. Next slide, please. So these are different ways that we could build the infrastructure. So automated construction systems. A multi-function unit machine is used to lift and later insert prefabricated housing components into a support structure. Although these prefabricated units are composed of standard components, they are of a modular design with such a wide and diverse array as to allow maximum individual expression in interior design and decor. Before we get into the rest of these, just so you know that Jacques Fresco, the one who invented the Venus Project, he actually wants it run by AI technology, but I don't agree with that. I don't think we should have it run by AI technology. None of these would have to be run by AI technology. We could have people manning them, and that would be much better in my opinion. It would just mean, his whole idea with this society would be that no one would really need to work unless they wanted to. But I think we shouldn't be using AI for these designs. Next slide, please. Automated cranes. Eventually, most of the construction of the industrial and research complexes in a circular city are carried out by robotic equipment that receives instructions via satellite. Automated cranes travel along the building's length, installing floors, windows, curtain walls, roofing, and other components from the ground up. These devices contain sensors to minimize industrial accidents or collisions with other devices or living beings. Next slide, please. Laser excavators. A laser excavator is directed via satellite, is capable of fusing the earth beneath it into molten magma-like material. This machine is able to change its shape to conform to a wide range of contours such as canals, roads, and waterways. And what's interesting about this is you can actually use this to hollow out a waterway from the ocean to the middle of the desert. And it can be done very quickly because, like it says, it heats the earth into molten magma, so it's very fast, quickly done. So we can literally just send water out into the middle of the deserts through these, just by making these canals, and it would be very easy to do. Next slide, please. Industrial robots. Multi-axis industrial robots utilize vast information resources which enable them to receive commands via satellite, uplink, or on-site. They are also designed to take appropriate actions in the absence of human directives by combining an array of sensors and receivers with sophisticated decision-making abilities. They are capable of handling a wide range of industrial production tasks and are able to upgrade their level of service and replace defective or worn parts. These mega robots communicate with one another to coordinate delivery of the required materials for each project. Next slide, please. Nanotechnology. The future of nanotechnology offers enormous potential. Nanotechnology combines optics and lasers and will eventually enable us to assemble matter, atom by atom, into whatever molecular structure is needed. Nanotechnology will lead to a sub-microscopic revolution in all fields, including the way in which we conduct human affairs. Next slide, please. Here's another ocean living design. I really like these. I think they'd be really incredible. And obviously in these facilities you can see like this is like a greenhouse in here. We have like greenhouses around in it too. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Earthships. So that was everything with the Venus project. So like I said, that is one way of doing things. We could add these designs in with those designs. Like we can always do that. So I'm not saying like that's the only way we should build things. I just think Jacques Fresco's ideas are really incredible, and I like how it uses free energy technology. It shows us how we can use it. So earthships are made of totally natural and recycled materials. A focus on the use of local materials is of great importance in the construction of an earthship. The focus is on sustainability and accessibility of materials. The most common materials that create the outer walls of an earthship are old recycled tires stuffed with earth. Then those tires are covered in mud, recycled glass bottles, and cans to be used to make more colorful and unique interior non-weight-bearing walls. The use of these materials has a variety of benefits. They are more durable and resilient than traditional building materials like wood. They hold up better in earthquakes, and they don't rot or become susceptible to termites over time. Next slide. Little to no need for heating or cooling systems. Did you know our planet is capable of delivering temperature stability without the need for pipes or wires? The sun is basically a nuclear power plant, and the planet is thermally stabilizing mass. The materials used to build earthships take advantage of the natural properties of Earth to maintain comfortable temperatures in nearly all climates. Depending upon the climate in your region, you can adjust the design of your earthship to accommodate your heating and cooling needs naturally. Next slide. Total power autonomy. The design of earthships allows them to survive off the power grid, or it can be tied on depending on your needs. They are designed to produce their own electricity by using solar power and or wind power. The energy is collected and then stored in giant batteries, which in turn routes electricity to your home. You can, was it done? Yeah. Okay. No. You can have all the comforts of a modern home in an earthship with the right design. Next slide, please. Sustainable, optimized water collection use. While earthships can have city water run through them, it's not always necessary. Earthships are designed to collect water when it rains and snows. The water is then used 4 times. The first time it is used to bathe or wash dishes. It's then cleaned and used to water indoor gardens. It's then filtered again and used to flush toilets. Finally, it is treated and used to water outdoor gardens. Nothing goes to waste in the water used in this design, and the groundwater is never polluted either. Next slide, please. Increased grid independence. Earthships are typically designed to have indoor and outdoor gardens. Because of the design of the water collection and use system, gardens can be watered using water filtered after other household uses. You can grow pretty much any vegetable you want in an earthship with the right plan. I really like the designs of these. Like you can get really creative with them. I don't know if it shows it later in here, but like a lot of people use like multiple glass bottles for the outsides. They're recycled, and if they're all different colors, it's really beautiful. Almost looks like mosaic. Next slide, please. Completely contained sewage treatment system. We discussed gray water being used to flush toilets after it has watered the indoor gardens. This gray water does not smell and is much more eco-friendly than using fresh water in your toilets. In addition, once the gray water has been used to flush the toilets, it's treated and ready to feed your outdoor garden. But don't worry, the systems are designed to then flow to conventional leach fields, so there's no worry about the treated water polluting aquifers. It's really a well thought out design. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Vertical gardens. I think these are really incredible. So, I'm from the Midwest, and it's just like cornfields for miles and miles and miles. It's like instead of like using up all this land, we could just be making skyscrapers with them. So that's what's amazing about them. The number one thing, it saves space. It helps filter the air pollution. Perfect for hydroponic systems, which yield more vegetation. No reuse of farmlands, and it's a controlled climate, so you can grow any kind of crop anywhere with as long as it's in this design. And incredibly beautiful designs that can be used as vertical walk-through parks. I think that would be really interesting with these is, not only is it being used to grow food or herbs, but also like maybe if you want to go for a walk and you're in a city area, instead of going through try to find a park or go outside the city, you can just walk through these and maybe, I even thought it would be interesting if maybe like for school classes, like teachers could take the kids through them, and it could be like a kind of like a learning experience. They could talk about like different herbs and plants. Next slide, please. Next slide. See, like this is really beautiful. Like these designs are amazing. So I really think it's nice to look at, and even like apartment buildings and stuff. We could have these vertical gardens around the outsides of the buildings, so at least like all the cities look greener than they are now. Next slide. Next slide. Like this to me is amazing. I wish like all of our buildings were built like this. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Here's some more examples of ocean communities. Next slide. So, conclusion. What will it take to change our world and implement these amazing ideas and designs? Would it mean a controlled demolition of society, complete destruction, or now chaos, which is what the globalists want? Or could we work together to make a smooth transition? I think if we eliminate the globalist cabal, like my first solution for humanity, then it could be a smooth transition. We just need to figure that out first. Next slide. I don't know if any of you know Michael Lee Hill. He posted this recently. I really liked it. I wanted to put it as the conclusion for this presentation. And we, the willing, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much with so little for so long. We are now qualified to do anything with nothing. So that's the end of my presentation, and I hope you guys learned something. Thank you.
Apolla Asteria, everybody. Good job.